Evelyn to Philip, November 20th, 1944. My dearest, this morning I waited around for the mailman, just so I wouldn't have to wait till evening to read the mail I expected to get. I was deeply disappointed to find that there wasn't even a single letter. November 21st, 1944. No doubt you are wondering what happened between what I wrote above and now. Well, let's start at the beginning. I wrote to you on the 19th, and when I finished, I dressed Adele and took her along with me to post your letter. I always lift her up and let her place the letter in the box, for she gets a big kick out of that. As we left the house, up pulled Al's car with Ethel, Paul, Ray, Stuart, and of course Al. They stayed a short while and then left. I gave Ethel Adele's old blue snowsuit to use as a spare for Stuart. Stuart stood up in his crib the other day alone. He'll be 8 months old on the 26th and is quite a big boy now. It struck me funny as I watched Adele and Paul run after each other, Goldie holding Diana and Al holding Stuart. You sure are going to have to become acquainted with a lot of new people. When they left, Sarah and Petey came over for a few minutes to say hello to Adele. That kid just adores both of them. Shortly after Sarah and Petey had come in, Mr. and Mrs. Bader arrived in time for their dinner date with us. Mom and I have promised to definitely visit them this coming weekend, and I fully intend to keep my promise. I was sorry I could not spend the evening at home, but I had promised Dot and Snuff that I would be out, and that's where I went. I got Adele to bed early, but she refused to go to sleep. Therefore, I didn't leave the house till 8:30, which means that I arrived at Dot's at 9:30, or too late to go anywhere. We had thought of taking in a movie since Snuff had until 2 in the morning. I wore my gray lumberjack dress, silver earrings, and I was terribly aggravated because when I got back I discovered I had lost one of the earrings and they went so well with my dress. Oh well, I'll have to get Mom another pair and get myself a pair. Fur coat, brown shoes and bag, and white leather gloves. I had a large red flower in my hair, and my hair looked almost as well as it did when I went to Lena's last week. Snuff looks positively grand, having dropped lots of weight. That reminds me, when Eddie called long distance Saturday night, he told Jack to tell me that he had seen you and that you looked swell, having put on weight. I'm glad you look swell, but I dislike the put on weight part. I don't have to tell you how much better you look when you have less weight. Wish I could say the same for myself. Page 2. Snuff brought home a fellow that sleeps in the same barracks with him for the weekend, as the fellow is from Michigan and didn't have anything to do over the weekend. This fellow is Protestant and 35 years old. Funny thing about him was that he reminded me of you. I can't say exactly what about him reminded me of you, except that he was built something like you, and his general appearance struck a familiar note. I know I shouldn't tell you this, for fear of your jealous streak, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The 4 of us went over to the ice cream parlor, same one we used to go to that used to be Sid's, and had some ice cream. Dot's sister-in-law and brother-in-law walked in and said to this fellow, "My, you're looking good," thinking that he was you. Can you imagine her embarrassment when she got a good look at him and realized that he was not my husband? He, on the other hand, said, "Maybe I should feel complimented." The whole situation only tended to make me want you that much more, and I was kind of relieved when I was on my way home. I also brought my new dress home. I got home rather late. Snuff walked me to the L, and I walked home from Broad Street. It was about 2:30 when I got to bed, and I had a picnic getting up Monday morning to go to work. I waited around for the mail, and you may refer to the first few sentences of this letter when none failed to arrive. I was blue all day and very much in the dumps. I started this before leaving the office. When I got home, I took Adele up and lay down with her. Next thing I knew, it was 12:30 a.m., and there I was, fully clothed. I had some milk and cookies, undressed, washed some things, washed myself, and went back to bed. After a good night's sleep, I was greeted with 3 beautiful letters. They were very old, being dated October 27th, 29th, and 30th. It may be the Christmas rush or something that's holding up the mail so long, and I'll be mighty grateful when the rush is over. Now, to answer your letters, I'm glad you're interested enough in writing to write that letter to Coronet. I told you before, I don't care if you fail 1,000 times as long as you keep trying. I'm sorry you didn't send me a copy, but I'm sure it was well written as well as intelligent, and I shall not be disappointed should you fail to win. I'm glad that you like the latest batch of snaps. Adele uses both her hands for everything, but I'm sure she'll be using the right hand when the time for using that hand only arrives. Yes, Adele is a very large kid for her age. In fact, she's taller than every other kid I know. No, dear, I wasn't hinting about the $18 for the bike for Adele. I wouldn't hint about it. I'd ask you for it. So there now. I was disappointed to hear that you were in debt. You're right, I don't like it. I sometimes wonder how you'd manage if you were on this end. But that's okay, you're forgiven. Then you got to talking about my remark that Adele is your one and only daughter. Guess you're right, for it's going to be that way for a long, long time. There will have to be some very definite changes, etc., but we won't go into that now. So Evelyn and Party kidded the ears off you about my letter. You needn't have any fears about my asking them such questions as what kind of women you would make dates with, etc. The letter was a simple, nice letter, and no doubt you've seen it by this time. I'm mildly surprised that you agree with me on the matter of the furlough. I didn't want to tell you what to do because of the fact that you haven't seen Adele for a long time, and I wanted the decision to be yours, especially in that connection. I'm sure most of the waiting is over, and if I could wait this long, I certainly can wait a little longer for the perfect reunion with you, my sweet. As for me practicing dancing, you needn't worry, honey. I love to dance. I see I'm just about at the end of my letter, so I'll continue with this tomorrow. My Aunt Gussie has invited me out to her place Thursday evening for dinner, as my cousin Meyer is home on furlough, and I hope I can make it. Harry is making a fair living at the moment with the station. He loves being his own boss. You ought to hear Adele reply to, "What's your name?" Her reply clearly is Adele Barra Trongen, and she lives on 8th Street. I love you, sweet. Your Ev. P.S. I'm very anxious to know what you decided in regard to keeping up this house. Many people think I'm a darn fool for keeping it. After examining it very carefully, I've decided to give it up, but I shall wait to hear from you. Philip to Evelyn, 20 November 1944. Dearest darling, I am writing this in the Colchester Red Cross Club, where I'm killing the next few hours before catching a truck back to camp. Last night, after I left Bert and Evelyn, about 11:30, I came here to sleep. This morning, after cleaning up, shaving, and breakfasting here, I sat around and read the papers. The big push seems to be going well, and it made very gratifying reading. About 11 o'clock, I took a walk to the Marxes and spent a few hours chatting with Mr. Marx. At 1:15, I went over to Bert's shop to pick him up for lunch. He is so devoted to his business that he rarely takes time out for lunch, but as a concession to me, he did so. Afterwards, he went back to the shop and I went off to the movies to see Harry Ape. It was a fairly interesting film. William Bendix was perfect in the title role, and Susan Hayward was just too sweet looking to be entirely convincing in her unsympathetic role. And I do think the direction was putrid. But as I said, it was a fairly interesting picture. No more. It might have been very good. Page 2, with more clever handling though. After the show, I headed back to the shop, where I batted the breeze with Bert until he closed up. I might have gone home with him, but I was afraid I might not be able to get a taxi later to take me to the parking lot to catch the truck. So I thought it a better idea to spend the intervening time here and get this off to you at the same time. Well, honey, that's that for this furlough. I can't truthfully say I enjoyed every minute of it, but the high spots, such as meeting Limey, the time I spent with Bert and Evelyn, the films I saw, etc., more than compensated me for the monotony of hours of riding on trains. Then, too, I did see quite a bit of England during the course of my travels, so all in all, I'm very pleased with the way it all turned out. My only regret is that I didn't get to see Eddie S. this trip. Believe it or not, sweet, I'm rather eager to get back to camp. Can you guess why? That's it. I can hardly wait to see how many letters have accumulated for me this past week. I fully expect the next one to inform me that Eddie is either home or on his way. Page 3, can hardly wait to see what you have to say about that. I am most acutely aware, darling, that it is only 9 days to the pumpkin's 2nd birthday. Before leaving, I instructed Red to have Adele's present ready for me when I get back. He promised to do so, and I don't think he'll disappoint me, so I'll be sending it along tomorrow. Please excuse the delay if it's a few days late getting there, honey. As you know, I would have sent it off more than a week ago if Red hadn't spoiled the first one. In the meantime, tell Adele that Daddy's present to her is on the way, and kiss her for me. My thoughts have been with you almost constantly this past week, sweetheart, and I often found myself wishing that you were by my side. Good night for now, sweet Chippy. I adore you. My love to all. Forever, your Phil.